Real pleasure to be back. Things have changed in the province since I left. When I left Saskatchewan, there were a number of problems that governments were kind of grappling with. There was growing inequality when I left. There was poverty. There was hunger, and there was homelessness, and there was environmental problems. And I guess that's all changed because now the biggest problem seems to be the excessive power of trade unions in this province. I'm not sure what happened. Now, of course, the government says that they haven't done anything, and that's true. They've just asked questions. And they're very bloody strange questions, aren't they? Like, why would anybody ask that? Do we want to have trade union rights rolled back fundamentally so that unions are much weaker in this province? Why would you ask a question like that? Do you want to roll back labor law for a century? Why would you ask that question unless in the back of your mind you're testing something to see how much you can get away with? And that's why it's so important that you're here today, folks, because the government is getting its answer from you and from people like you throughout the province. They tried to pretend that there's nothing going on except these innocent questions, and you know better. You know that if they go ahead with anything that they're proposing in that so-called discussion paper, it is nothing more or less than a fundamental attack on the right of working people in this province. And if they try and pretend anything else, they are lying to you and lying to the people of the province. They can talk about fairness, they can talk about all of the code words that they use, but fundamentally, if they go ahead, people will understand that this is nothing more or less than weakening unions deliberately, on purpose, for no other reason but to get unions to be less of a political force in this province. That's what it's about. And we have to understand, I think, that when you attack unions, you're attacking not the organization called the union, you're attacking the members that are of that union. You're making the organization that those people belong to weaker so that their collective ability to act is weakened. It's not the union as an abstraction, it's the right of working people that's being attacked. And it's not the right of working people that's being attacked alone, it is fundamental democracy that's being attacked as well. Because we know it instinctively, and we know it from study after study, that strong democracy equals strong unions, and you can't have a strong democracy unless you have a strong trade union movement. That is so well known that the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, for heaven's sake, the Rich Nations Club, has said that. They've studied it, and they say you can't have a strong democracy without strong unions. And this is not just an attack on unions, it's an attack on equality in this province. Because we know as a fact, not as a theory, but as a fact, that the weaker unions are, the greater the income inequality. We know that through history, and we know it now when unions are under attack around the world, that the impact of that is growing inequality. The wealth goes up to the top, the middle stagnates, and the people at the bottom lose ground every year. Unions are a force for greater equality, and that's one of the reasons that they're coming after us. And, you know, at some level, this is also an attack on the ability of an economy to be prosperous. You know, a few years ago, we used to talk about what would happen if unions were weaker. And now we don't have to theorize about what happens when unions are weaker, because in Europe and the United States, it's happened. They've attacked union rights. And one of the things that's happened when you attack union rights is that your economy goes into the tank. Because if people don't have enough money to buy and to participate in the economy, guess what? The economy collapses. Why do you think that the U.S. is having such trouble climbing out of the recession? It's because while they're trying to climb out of the recession, they were attacking working people and their wages. It's a complete contradiction. In Europe, the economy there, the social economy, the social rights of people has been attacked. And as a result, we've got country after country, the recession is deepening. You can't attack the union movement without attacking the very foundation of a prosperous and shared society. Now, I was walking along here talking to a reporter from the Leader Post, and great conversation. She was doing her job. She said, well, don't you hear these days that unions are sort of a spent force, you know, that they used to be important, but they're not anymore? And my answer was, yeah, I do hear that these days. I've been hearing it for 40 years. The difference now is that we don't have to think about what the answer is, we just have to look at the facts. Because in the United States, unions are under attack. And the result of that has been social systems are eroding, the quality of life of the entire society is eroding as a result of attacking unions. And the same thing is true in Europe. We don't have to wonder if unions are important. We can tell that when unions are attacked, wage inequality grows. We know that as a fact because we've seen it. We don't have to wonder what would happen if unions are weakened because we can tell that democracy erodes. Would any of you like to be participating in that interesting variety of democracy next door in the United States right now? The best democracy money can buy? We're still better than that because we have a strong union movement that can ensure that there is real democracy in this country. Now, the government knows all of that. The government knows as well that what they are doing, if they even proceed with any of the stuff that they've got in that discussion paper, they will be flaunting their international obligations under the International Labour Organization. They know that too. They did that once under the essential services legislation. We took them on. We got the ILO to rule that nobody is allowed to do that under ILO rules, and the court then said, yeah, but we signed on to the international rules, so that law is invalid. If they do what they're talking about now, it will be violation after violation after violation of our international obligations under the ILO, and we're going to have to go back to the courts if it happens. We're not going to win all of our battles in the courts. We'll be in the streets as well, but we'll also take them on in court, and we will win in court because this government, if they do what they're talking about there, will be flaunting their international obligations left, right, and center. And that's no longer allowed in this country. Well, one of the things they talk about is they're protecting the right of individual workers by saying that the individual should have the right to say, we're not going to pay union dues for this or that or that. They want to basically make it impossible for unions to function in the broader environment. They may want to make it impossible for unions to fight back against labor law changes because we'd have to go out and get permission from all individual members, which is an impossible task. And you know, that's goofy. Well, it's not goofy, there's better words for it, but I want to be polite, there's children in the audience. That's essentially absolutely intolerable, and it is so intolerable that the Supreme Court of Canada has already ruled on that question and said that is not on in Canada. We need unions to be strong for democratic participation, and to allow individuals to opt out of paying union dues for that kind of reason is a violation of our charter and a violation of our collective obligations to each other. There's a theme that you will have picked up by now, that all of this stuff is perfectly clear. The government knows this as well as you and I do. And I come back to the point that if they decide to do what they're asking questions about in this paper, they will be deliberately and consciously attacking the union movement and causing the difficulties that we're talking about, because they know perfectly well that you can't get there from here without going through those problems. They've looked at the same facts we have. So if this government wants to roll back the social programs in Saskatchewan, and if they want to increase money going to the wealthy, and if they want to weaken the democracy that working people have, then what they need to do is proceed with this discussion paper. And they will be doing it for no other reason. If fairness is not part of the process, this is simply a fundamental attack on the political power of working people so that they can achieve their objectives. Well, of course, if they get rid of unions, there will still be a force that is really participating in the political process. Have you heard of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business? Have you heard of the Board of Trade? Have you heard of the Chamber of Commerce? Have you heard of the Canadian Manufacturers Association, the Canadian Mining Association, the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers? I could spend the rest of the afternoon going through the list of employer organizations that they're not worried about at all. There's no limitations being proposed on the right of employer organizations to be lobbying day after day after day for repressive legislation. One target only. One target only, and that's us. Well, my friends, we've fought governments before, haven't we? I was talking on the way over about a good old friend of ours called Grant Devine. And when Grant Devine got elected, at first there was a bit of a slow response, and it started to grow, and it started to grow, and it started to grow. And eventually Grant Devine, for the privilege of attacking working people and public services in this province, was thrown out of office. Now, Brad Wall is a pretty popular premier. But if Brad Wall wants to pick a fight with the labor movement, he is going to get one hell of a fight, a bigger fight than he ever imagined. And it won't be limited to the province of Saskatchewan. The eyes of Canada are on this province right now. This province was not just the province where Medicare started. This was the first province to have a trade union act in this country. And we're not about to sit back and watch a government that wasn't elected with a mandate to attack working people think that they can get away with rewriting the history of this province. You guys will be there, I know that. I'm from Saskatchewan, I know how hard you can fight. You will be in the streets, you'll be in the courts, you'll be in every place that you have to mount the battle. But I just want to finish by saying this. When that happens, if it happens, and this government has got the right now, the chance, they've got the choice, they can say we're not going to engage in that fight, but if they do, they will not only be meeting you every day, every time they turn around, but you'll have support from across this country, and together we'll knock this right out of the park. Thank you.